Hello everyone, welcome back to Reimagine 2021 version 11, our virtual conference series, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. My name is Miguel Vazquez, and with us right now is Derek Lau, game director for Guild of Guardians, a mobile NFT RPG published by Immutable. Immutable, of course, is the outlet behind Ethereum, one of Ethereum's highest grossing trading card games, Gods Unchained. But Derek, an NFT RPG, it sounds really interesting. Could you explain?
Yeah, sure. So we're working on Guild of Guardians, which is a mobile RPG. So the way the game works is you have a team of characters in the game that you can level up, fight through dungeons, equip with weapons, etc., to kind of progress, similar to a typical mobile game. And the NFT part is simply the fact that many things in the game are tradable as NFTs, so that players can earn them and trade them. They can use them. They can buy them from other players or resell them when they want, and that's one of the unique parts about the game. And broadly speaking, our goal is we want to create a really fun and compelling mobile game that's played by millions of players, where everyone's able to turn their passion for gaming into NFTs.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that you had actually said that one of the big ways that NFTs are actually employed right now is kind of that play to earn model, but you have something that you like to talk about called play and earn. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So right now, the play to earn terminology is very common, and I think it's been picked up a lot by media. It's very catchy. One of the things that it implies, however, is that people are playing to earn money, almost like a job. So they're not necessarily playing for any other reason than to earn money. And that kind of makes it sound like it's more of a job, more of a chore, less emphasis on the game itself. And so one of the ways that we like to describe what Guild of Guardians is going to be like is that it's play and earn, where players are able to play a game that they enjoy for fun, which they would play anyway. You know, they're playing with friends, enjoying being competitive or being social, whatever they enjoy. And they're also happen to be earning at the same time. And we think this is the direction that many games are going to head towards, particularly as we have, more and more quality games entering into the market.
Yeah, definitely, because you definitely see that model out there right now. Kind of the predominant model is that harvest or fetch quest kind of on a timer where it's kind of transparent about what's going on there. That's kind of so really focusing on the games first, and then why are NFTs kind of a good use case for things like an RPG?
Yeah, so fundamentally what NFTs allow you to do is it allows players to own their stuff and trade them. And so the reason it's a really good fit for an RPG is that an RPG is a game which has a real economy. You have people wanting to trade their equipment, wanting to level up their heroes. You have people who might be, farming certain materials in order to do stuff. They might be questing to try to get rare loot. And it's a game where progression, trading, and all these different components in the economy are all interlinked. And that's what a true economy is, where you have people working on different things. They have their own role in the economy, and so NFTs are a really good fit for that. And they also allow us to do it in a decentralized way, which means that we can't take away someone's items even if we wanted to, right? It's completely owned by the players. They can do what they want with them, and they know that, and it's completely secure.
So in the game itself, let's actually kind of talk about how some of those things are enacted in the game itself, so we can kind of, because that's one of the things is people like to talk about, the theories behind it, but how are y'all actually doing it?
Yeah, sure. So first off, the game is a team RPG. So a player will go into dungeons with a team of 4 heroes, kind of fight through different monsters and bosses to level up and get loot. So what happens is when someone goes into a dungeon and successfully finishes, they can get several in-game currencies. And these are just normal, your typical, loot that you get from a game. So that, for example, they can get summoning shards. Um, Summoning shards are used to summon heroes, which can become NFTs, which can then become tradable. Players can also get what kind of like crafting materials. And so they can then use that and work together with the rest of their guild in order to craft items, which are tradable. And actually the only way to create items in the game, or the rare items in the game, are through creating NFTs. Like we don't sell them. The only way to make it is players are making it. So it becomes a purely player-driven economy. There's also a big part of focus of the game is players joining guilds. So you're not just playing by yourself, but you're working together with your guild in order to, one is to do crafting, but also to do additional guild events. So we're going to have things like guild raids, where you're raiding together with your team, with your fellow guild mates against a boss. In the future, there's going to be additional things like, guild battles and other modes as well. One other thing we have in the game as well is a token, which is a bit of a buzzword. Basically, it's players can also earn think about like a gem. They're earning gems for playing the game, and these gems are tradable for the marketplace. So if they wanted, they could sell it straight away when they earn it, or they could choose to spend it in the game. And actually, whenever someone wants to craft an item or summon a hero, they need to spend a small amount of these gems.
Sort of like a gas fee.
Yeah, kind of like a fee, so to speak. At the same time, we kind of plan to reward gem owners as well for those who hold them.
It's very, very interesting, yeah, because I kind of I read some of the paper that you had written on some of the use cases for some of these NFTs in the gaming space, and so I guess is that kind of when you talk about an actual allowing like a third party to kind of build something on top of a game, that's kind of what you're talking about, where I didn't put anything in. The players actively went out and they created something, and now, they have a market in town or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're keen to open up to people is the ability for other people to build around Guild of Guardians. Effectively build a career or build a business, whether that means they're playing the game full time or like running a guild, whether that means they're investing in other people to do that, or whether that means maybe they're a content creator and they're creating, they bring more awareness for Guild of Guardians, and that's helping us, and that's allowing us to help them as well. Or maybe they're developing tools and things like that. So all of these things we're hoping to empower, incentivize, and build. And ultimately create almost like a crazy growth loop where we incentivize people to do these things, they're doing these things, which then grows the game, brings more awareness, makes the game more popular, which allows us to make more money effectively, which we can then have more incentives to give out to people. So trying to creating this prosperous loop through empowering the community is one of the things that we're trying to do.
It's kind of a nice positive feedback loop you got going on there. So I guess, is that kind of what you're talking about when you say that you want to, that's something else that I've heard you talk about, or I've read you talk about, is aligning the incentives between all participants.
Exactly. I think one of the key unique advantages that we have as a game, like as an NFT game, is the ability to do that. So we very much want to create a situation where it's win-win. So players win when the game gets successful, not just players though, but also everyone around the ecosystem, creators, influencers, developers, esport competitors, you name it. I'm sure there's things that we can't even think of right now, but we want to create these win-win scenarios, and structuring the incentives in the right way is really the most powerful way to do it. So maybe a simple example is we've done some NFT sales. We had a referral incentive in there where we said, hey, like if you tell your friends about Guild of Guardians, and if they buy, then you get 5% of what they spend, and they get 5% off. So kind of very simple, referral program. But even in that, I think we gave away something like $400,000 to individuals who are just referring their friends to buy. So it's kind of things like this which we're looking to do more of, and at a much larger scale as well.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because you do see a lot of, like you said, esports, and even in the kind of the F1 and the soccer too. So you see these organizations kind of adopting these NFTs because they kind of understand, hey, the fans are interested in something. And I saw that y'all had signed a partnership with NRG. Is that correct? And how are y'all going to utilize that kind of partnership, and in what way can NFTs kind of even broader in a corporate sphere? How
Mm.
can they be utilized by big companies?
Yeah, we're partnering with NRG Esports, kind of one of the premier esport companies. We're both super excited about it. The broad goal here is that their audience is super digitally native. Um, and they also have a really big platform, a really big following. And everyone in their following plays games, right? At the same time, this digitally native audience, they're going to be increasingly aware of NFTs, increasingly aware of NFT games. And so we're kind of partnering up with them to just make them aware of NFT games, Guild of Guardians, etc. But also give NRG a way to engage more with their fans as well, where they're able to own a piece of NRG IP as an NFT, which not only can they kind of buy and sell and own and show off, but they can also play within Guild of Guardians. Um, so I think there's in the future there's kind of there's a ton of really interesting things we can do as well, where typically influencers, esport brands, they really struggle to make money. They make money off ads and sponsorships, but it's not, even though they add so much value to the games. And so finding a model where they're not reliant on advertising, but they're kind of, maybe they're helping, the game like Guild of Guardians grow, and they get like a share of that upside, which helps them. I think finding situations like this is what's going to be super interesting to a lot of esport teams, and kind of one of the longer term things that we're exploring.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, because
And it's not just esports; it's like all of the content creators within it. It's everyone in that, around that ecosphere. They add so much value to games, but they don't really get paid directly by the games, which
yeah, it's
is which
very, very
is strange,
frustrating.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's absolutely very frustrating because in an RPG type environment, instead of those people working, for they could actually be helping spread the word of things that are going on, like a kind of a herald type situation, as opposed to um, what you have today, which is like you said, working for ads.
yeah, exactly.
So I was reading as well that over there at Immutable that y'all had developed, and maybe we can get into some of the technical aspects of the blockchain that um, backs up Guild of Guardians. I had read that they're y'all had developed some sort of layer two solution for I think the Ethereum blockchain for NFTs.
Yeah, yeah. So Immutable is the company behind Immutable X, and Immutable X is a layer two scaling solution for Ethereum.
Okay.
So put very simply, Ethereum is a blockchain. It's the most popular one, used by, it has like 99% of all volume among all blockchains, especially for NFTs. And Immutable X is still uses Ethereum, but in a scalable way. So it means that there's no gas fees. There's many more transactions per second. And also developers are able to integrate with it in an easier way. So we build with it via APIs, for example. So it's much more developer friendly, versus having to understand how to directly interact with the blockchain and all of those, technical nuances, um, things like that. So we're using that. We've kind of got some NFTs on there so far, putting that in, and there's many other games that aren't owned by Immutable, or other like collectible projects, etc., also building on it. So I think like TikTok, for example, we did something with them recently on Immutable X.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Branching off from that, what are some risks that are unique to a mobile NFT game as opposed to just like a regular mobile game? Um, because you just said we don't really have to touch the blockchain that much. So are there any unique risks?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's There are some risks, right? I think the general regulatory kind of compliance element of it is an area of risk, which maybe people don't think about too much. And the main reason is that it's a bit of a hazy area, right? Maybe the government one day will come along and be like, NFTs are illegal. Like you can't have them anymore, right? And
Yeah.
we're beginning to see more scrutiny on the tokens, especially in the US. So that's always an area of risk, which we spend a lot of time thinking about and mitigating, right? Because it's serious. Another risk, I think, for the industry generally is around security. So players need to be able to understand how to securely own their NFTs and all the other digital assets. And I think we're going to see like a lot more hackers, a lot more scams, a lot of hack attempts, on our servers because of the fact that we don't just have, diamonds and wood in the gold. We have things that are tradable for real money. So that would make us a more of a target for these scams and hacks and things like that. So it's like that's definitely a consideration, which you don't have in a normal game. I think those are big ones. And obviously, like we're building with new tech, so there's always not so much risk, but there's challenges like for us to build with new tech. It's going to take longer. We're doing things for the first time. Things might go wrong, but those are things more for us to manage and execute on.
Sure. What are some of those groundbreaking areas that people don't really think about when they're talking about like game development in this space? I know everybody knows Unity, but maybe because also I've seen at the bottom of almost everything, you're like, hey, if you want to come work on a video game for blockchain, come ping me, please. So what are what are some things that somebody would need to come and help out?
Yeah, I think so. Building a video game incredibly challenging, very rewarding. But that's a big component of it. Ultimately, is at the end of the day, we're building a game. So those skills are very important. But on top of that, we have these new challenges that are unique to NFTs. So first off is the community element. In a normal game, typically games don't really build a community as much. It's not as valuable. Like the game will come out and then they'll have the community. But for us, we already have a community, even though the game hasn't come out yet. And our community is very invested. They care a lot about what we do. They want to give input. They own NFTs in the game. They effectively own some of the game, and so they're also partially invested, even just emotionally, right, into what we do. So I think managing that is really important, and also using that to your advantage by creating incentives, creating other things. Knowing how to do that, I think, is what's going to make these games like Guild Guardians super successful. And that's one of the areas where we're focusing on now. Even though we've already seen some really cool things, I think there's like a ton of unexplored opportunities. Then there's the technical aspect of integrating the actual blockchain into the game. And most developers just aren't. Most game developers won't really be too familiar with how the blockchain works, how you want to integrate, etc. So the technical integration, I think, is a challenge and something that people might not think about because. Which leads me to my next point. So we're not just building a game. It's not just building a mobile game. We're building all the products around it. So, what else matters for us? It's having a good marketplace. This is a product outside of the game. It's going to exist on the web, and that's something that normal games don't really have to think about. They don't have to think about building a product outside of the game. We have to think about that. We have to think about how do people easily create an account. How do people easily spend using credit card? How do people view their collection in and out of the game? So the product element outside of the game is quite important. And then lastly, I think the design of the game is also very different. So if someone wants to really embrace NFTs, just turning skins into NFTs, for example, isn't really making the most of it. It's kind of like, okay, you're letting me trade my skins, but that's really it. There's not much to it. Whereas I think, and also in most games, it's all about closed economies. As a designer, you're building for a single player spreadsheet. How quickly are you going to progress? When are you going to get these items? How do I manage like your own progression? And how do I make you spend by yourself? Whereas now, the design is completely different. It's completely open. Um, we don't necessarily even want you to spend money on things we sell. We want you to trade with other players. That's completely different design, right? And everything is tradable, which means that you have to think about the economy a lot more carefully. So I
Yeah,
think the design elements are quite different.
yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's instead of really like building that story progression, it's almost on one end you have to build out that whole like Web3 framework for everybody, and then on the other end, in order to not have to go in and hey everything's out of whack, you really have to be deliberate about building the world right as you seed it, which is I I don't know another game that works like that, even MMOs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's challenging, I think. Right? It's definitely not easy. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move over and let's take a look at some things that are happening just kind of around the world. In September, El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender. They opened their Chivo wallet there. And shortly thereafter, the IMF labeled cryptoization a threat to the world economy. Um, what do you think that the El Salvador decision will do for their economy and then kind of the wider global economy in general?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, I think, them taking that move. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not too much into the details of how it's played out, right? Um, but I think it's a really interesting use of crypto because at the beginning, crypto was all about it's going to be a currency. And then it turned out that's actually not that viable um, because of like gas fees and people ran into all these scaling issues. And then it turned into more of a, actually, you know what, it's going to be more based on products. It's based on decentralized finance, DeFi, it's based on NFTs and all these like art use cases, gaming use cases, like music, royalties, you name it. Um, but the fact that it's kind of circled back to being used as a currency, I think is interesting. I'm sure most governments will oppose it. um, but the kind of it goes to show that the potential is definitely there and the interest is there. Like it's people are able to onboard to it quite quickly. Like all the retail shops, like all the users are able to use it. Um, so yeah, there could be a world where where it gets used more as just a general currency.
That's, and my timing might be a little bit off here, but I seem to remember that very shortly thereafter, or maybe right before they released that Lightning network popped up real quick, right as soon as everybody needed to make Lightning fast transactions. So that was,
Yeah, exactly. So the scaling solutions like Lightning are, also proving to work,
yeah. So
at least so
who
far.
knows? Who knows? Turning over to DAOs. We talked a little bit about them earlier. Maybe we can talk about how they function in the game, and then if they actually have a use case in the real world, maybe for companies or for governments.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, DAOs are becoming more and more popular for sure. Currently, we aren't structured as a DAO. Um, and I think there are some things which a DAO is incredibly useful for, and there might be some things that are more challenging. So for us, kind of like we're in a very early elements of building the game. It's a very specialized area, and kind of decentralizing everything makes it more challenging. Um, whereas for other things, for example, maybe like investment groups or things like that, uh, that's when like kind of a DAO makes more sense. We have a group of people that are all working together, on this mission. Um, I think we're going to see more DAOs spur up where it's important to align incentives. So um, things where kind of the power of the group is greater than the power of the individual. And so you get so much more scale with a DAO. If you had 10,000 people in a DAO versus 20 people in a team, like 10,000 people contributing could be super valuable, right? And so I think that's ultimately what the benefits are. There's also a bunch of legal stuff as well. And I think on that end, that's also shaping up more in terms of like, how do you actually do it legally? How do you structure it? And I think there's more, how do you manage, funds in the DAO? Like who's going to own it? I think there's a lot of operational legal things that also are becoming more and more solved. And there's also more and more third-party tools or companies dedicated to solving those issues as well, so that more DAOs can be created.
I think it's very, very exciting. And I think if I did hear anything about it, I think it would actually have been in the game somehow, but I don't know if where I had read that. But
Yeah, I think we have, so within the game we actually have DAOs who are planning to build in Guild of Guardians basically. So they're not
oh,
run by us, right?
yeah.
They're actually completely separate, but there's a few different ones where they're planning to invest heavily or have already in Guild of Guardians. They're planning to build out what they call like scholarship programs and guilds in the game, which is effectively them. They're kind of running these guilds. They're finding ways to play the game. They're sponsoring other people to play competitively. Um, they're educating, they're building awareness, and they're kind of earning a share of what the community makes. So I think there's a few different groups like that are forming. Um, and there's also a few like non-DAOs who are just developing tools and other things outside of Guild Guidance as well.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting, and it does kind of portend towards that. And I don't know if it was you who said this or somebody else about the that kind of that metaverse economy that you're talking about, where it's all on y'all. Y'all go do it, and even make your DAO if you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the long term, we want these NFTs to not just be usable in our game. Like we want them to be usable across different experiences, um, different games even, or have different ways to engage. And I think that's when you really have like these multiple use cases. Really, when you have this idea of a metaverse.
Yeah, let's round kind of just to kind of put a bow on everything. Let's round back up on the real world use cases of NFTs instead of just the really unique and interesting kind of, because I think a lot of people when they think of NFTs they immediately go to and I believe you might have been an early adopter of the crypto kitties or a rock or and of
Mm-hmm.
course we've already been talking, it's not necessarily just about that, but what are some real world use cases where people who maybe are poo-pooing it right now in 10 or 15 years might be using it in a certain kind of way?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, um, in my opinion, like the primary use case of like blockchain NFTs is digital. So it's kind of it's like an interesting thing I like to think about is like almost everything in the real world is an NFT, but it's a physical version, right? It's unique. You can trade it, you can buy and sell it. Um, NFTs is just a digital version, um, and so I think like the growth there is going to be huge. And I think there's a few areas where it's going to bridge more to the real world. So one is people love to show things off, show off, right? They love to show off, impress. That's why they buy a nice car, a nice watch, etc. Um, and then how do they show it off? Like they take pictures of it, they show it online. And I think one of the things we're going to see more of is people don't show off their physical belongings, but they're showing off their digital belongings. They're showing off their, CryptoPunk or their Bored Ape, Um, and it's actually much easier to show that off than it is to show off the physical good because you can do it online and that's where everyone lives these days.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's where we're going to see a lot of things like the transition where it's like no longer showing off things that physical belongings, but it's more digital. And like people might be walking along the street and they see someone with, a t-shirt that has their punk on it, right? Or something like that. And like you kind of know, um, what that person's got, so to speak. So I think that's one element. I think there's a ton of stuff around um, like property in the real world as well, like kind of using the blockchain to assign and the ledger to have a record of like who owns what property, use that to trade. So I think we're going to see also things where the ownership of physical goods is represented digitally. So maybe you even have like a yacht that's like a physical yacht, and in order to get your timeshare of the yacht, you have to own this NFT, right? And you own one of the NFTs, you can sell your timeshare if you want, and you need to like tap that timeshare or whatever. Like you need to use that timeshare, use that NFT to get access. So then you're going to see more of these things more NFTs and blockchain using to prove ownership of physical assets and like who owns what.
So kind of bridging the gap between the physical and the ephemeral of
Yeah.
just to kind of wrap it up, the long-term use cases in terms of that kind of what you were talking about with the social, hey, I'm showing off online. In the past, we've really had a single mass media environment where everything has just kind of been, everybody's watching the same channels, everybody's getting the same news. And as you move online, that kind of fractures a little bit. And do you think that some of, the hey, get off of my lawn is driven by not really fully understanding why that would be cool in an online environment?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to explain. I think it's one of the things where someone really has to experience it to fully understand. Like I think, especially if someone like they don't know what the blockchain is, they don't know they might not know what the games are. They like might not even use the internet that much. Like it's very hard to explain the benefits of having online identity, having that, being verifiable and provable, like these digital assets. I think there's still a ton of education that can happen, but it's actually happening at a much faster pace than we originally anticipated. It's hit mainstream media early this year, and if you think about 12 months ago, no one really knew what it was, but now it's pretty popular. Well, not pretty. It's like getting more popular, right? And I think the education piece is going to be more useful, and also as it becomes more mainstream friendly, it also becomes more useful because I can then refer to, but hey, you want to know what NFTs are? Why don't you play this game that looks completely normal? It's a pretty fun game, and you get paid, but at the end, right? Like, and then you're like, oh, okay, you kind of realize why people might find that interesting,
Yeah,
the benefit and what it's like.
it's definitely a very, very interesting, and I think we're being helped out too by everybody being stuck inside and kind of having nothing else to do but learn, because yeah, it really has taken off here, and I did not think that people would learn this quickly about, my parents are asking me about NFTs, which is insane.
Right. Yeah. Same. They're asking me if they should buy something. I'm like,
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
right.
Yeah, settle down.
but,
Yeah, be
um,
careful with that email
but
in your
yeah,
inbox.
it's super exciting, and like think about what's gonna happen in 12 months time or in 5 years time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Well, before we go here, is there anything else you'd like to say about the game or, anything involved in it before we take off? Or where people can reach you if they're interested in coming to work for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're interested in working with us, you can probably the easiest way to find us is our website www.guildofguardians.com. We're also very active on Twitter and Discord, which you can find on our website. So definitely come check it out. Feel free to join, ask any questions. I'm sure someone will be able to help you. And you'll also be able to find me there as well. You can just message me on Discord if you join our channel, and happy to try to get back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's Derek Lau, the game director for Guild of Guardians, put out by Immutable. Thank you so much, Derek. Have a great day.
Thanks for your time. It was nice to chat.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.